As you guys can see, we are talking about the Must De Cartier Tank today. I'm going to do a deep dive on everything you guys need to know about this watch when it comes to the important things to learn about the Must De Cartier Tank. If we were to do a true deep dive on everything, the video would be pretty long, but I'm going to try to knock out the most important things to look for and understand before purchasing one. If you guys think we missed anything, or if you still have any questions after the video, please comment below or reach out to us. I have so much more information to share with you guys, and I'm happy to do so if you have any questions. With that being said, let's get into today's video and everything you really need to know before purchasing a Must De Cartier tank. First, it's important to understand what the Must De Cartier line is. Must De Cartier was introduced by Cartier in the 80s as an affordable alternative to their pretty expensive jewelry and watches. A Cartier Tank Louis in solid yellow gold like this from the same era might be too expensive for someone to own, but a gold-plated example with the same DNA and history as the Cartier Tank Louis could be had for a fraction of the cost. And the Must De Cartier line was born, and it was very popular and still is today, as you can see with the popularity of the Must De tank. With that being said, we're going to talk about the gold-plated case, the lacquer finish dials, and the important topics that people bring up when it comes to the more affordable version of the Cartier tank. So we'll start with the movement and the case sizes. You have three different case sizes within the Must De Cartier tank. You have the standard large size, which is 23 by 30 millimeter, like the classic Cartier Tank Louis. The small size, which is 20 by 28, also like the small woman size of the classic Cartier Tank Louis. Then an XL version of the Must De Cartier tank that was introduced in the late 90s and early 2000s. This larger size was also the only Must De Cartier tank to feature a date window and a seconds hand, and only came in quartz. For the small and large size like these, they had quartz and manual on movements, both being at a Swiss. The great thing about these movements is they are easy to service and even affordable to fully replace if they can't be serviced, making the Must De Cartier tank an affordable watch to own if you take care of it correctly. At the same time, we need to talk about the gold-plated case, something that worries a lot of people who are trying to purchase a Must De Cartier tank because they are scared of what they heard online and on social media about how terrible the gold plating is, which it's not true. You could see in the comments on our previous videos when this argument is brought up, and we have clients who have purchased these watches and who have owned them for a pretty long time and have had no problems with the gold tarnishing on their Cartier tank. At the same time, with an example like this, which is from the 1980s, it's a watch that is 40 years old and it is still in perfect condition, and it even has its original case back sticker. This watch has been worn and it's been alive for a very long time, but it's still in perfect condition. If it's lasted 40 years already, I bet you it'll last another 40 if you take care of it. Keep in mind that the cases are gold plated with a sterling silver solid case underneath. So technically you are still getting a precious metal watch, even though it's gold plated. The Must De Cartier tank could mainly be found with this yellow gold plated case, but you can also find some pretty uncommon examples with the rhodium plating, which gives it a silver case look, and those could be found with the white and blue Roman numeral dials, with the 23 by 30 millimeter case size and the 20 by 28 millimeter case size. And then you can find rhodium plated XL sizes with a bit more different variations of dials. But today we're focusing on the classic 23 by 30 millimeter yellow gold case Must De tank, the one that everybody wants to own. The most important things to understand is the gold plated case, but it's also the lacquer finish dial. A lot of these watches do tend to spider, which also means that it begins to crack on the dial over time. This lacquer finish is very common to have spidering, but if it's only the lacquer that has a spider finish like this Bordeaux dial, you don't have to worry about it, because to the naked eye when you're wearing it, it's not noticeable. And if anybody tries to tell you that that lacquer finish is what makes these watches so terrible, keep in mind that the Cartier Tank Louis from the same era, even from the 70s and 80s, also had a lacquer finish on the dial, and you can see them start to spider and even crack over time. So if a very expensive Cartier Tank Louis has the same problem, it shouldn't scare you away from owning a Must De Cartier tank. The next thing to talk about is dials. There are so many dials to look at when it comes to the Must De Cartier tank, and even limited edition examples from the late 90s and early 2000s that actually have a limited number, some even only 50 to 100 ever being made and shown on the case back. But for the classic lacquer finishes like we see here, there's really one important topic that we need to talk about. We can see that this is a classic Roman, which you can find with most Cartier tanks, tanks. And then you can see this is the reverse tuxedo version, this time with a black dial and white or silver Roman numerals, depending on the model that you find. I think these are super cool. And if you're looking for a reverse option of the Roman dial, you can only find it with the Must De tank. But what I want to talk about is the so-called lapis lazuli, onyx, and wood dial Must De tanks. Now, yes, Cartier did make a gold-plated tank with a real wood dial on it and also wood case sides. But the Must De Cartier tank never had a real wood dial. It never had a real lapis stone dial or onyx stone dial. This was made intentional by Cartier. They stated that they wanted to make an affordable alternative to their very expensive stone dial watches from the era. So they made a lacquer dial to mimic onyx, similar to this Bordeaux dial, but in solid black with the gilt Cartier logo and the Cartier name. And at the same time, they did the same thing with a blue dial with some gold flaking throughout to look like a lapis lazuli stone. But it's not a real stone. A lot of dealers don't state that when they're selling or listing a watch, and it does cause confusion. I have spoken with a lot of clients and had to teach them and run them through what it means to have a Must De Cartier tank lapis dial. And if any dealer or person who owns one is trying to sell you it and tell you it's a lapis lazuli stone dial, it's just not true. It was never produced, and that goes for the onyx stone dial also. The brown dials could be seen with a marble-like effect, and that is the same finish. It's a simple paint lacquer finish that is meant to mimic wood, but it is just a lacquer painted dial. No Must De Cartier tank features a real stone or precious material dial. That is the most important thing to note about dials. We can go into a deep dive on the different variations and understanding what is a redial and original, but there's a lot to talk about. So if you have any questions about dials specifically for a watch that you're looking at or own, please feel free to reach out to us. But when it comes to dials, the most important thing is to understand the stone dial alternatives that were released by Cartier intentionally to look like stone dials as an affordable alternative. Now let's talk about what it means to have a box and paper set, and the most important thing to understand with these sets. A lot of people want to talk about how their papers aren't filled out. Their warranty papers are blank on their vintage Cartier, and that's completely normal. If it's a solid gold and rare Tank Louis or other model, or something as affordable as a Must De tank, there was no database for serial numbers and reference numbers, and the information was just not there. These watches were sold as a piece of jewelry. They were boxed up and given to their new owner, just as any other piece of jewelry would be. They didn't think to fill out the warranty cards, so that's very normal. Now, with that being said, you can find examples with filled out certificates, like this one that was sold in Italy in December of 1997. This reference 1615cc has a full certificate filled out by the boutique that it was purchased from, which is also normal. And you can even see with this specific example, they have a serialized barcode on the certificate. It's rare, but it is possible to find a set as complete and true as this. This one is also new old stock, which is super special, and we can understand what a new old stock watch looks like. This one is a true unworn example with its original caseback sticker, unworn strap, and deployant. You can see within the Must De Cartier tank line, we had two different buckle options. A deployant with a strap that would fold over and could be adjusted, and then a regular Tang buckle. The deployant would have the logo, Swiss made in stainless steel, etched in the deployant, but the gold-plated Tangs do not have any information on the back, making it hard to decipher if it's an original or reproduction Cartier buckle. But if you know what to look for, you'll know if it's original or not. Just because it has no hallmarks or engravings on the back does not mean it's fake. It just means it's a gold-plated Cartier buckle, and that's completely normal. The buckles like these could be found with a 14mm or 16mm size, but all Tangs are the same size and similar in shape. The manual wound and quartz movements could be found with a Tang or deployant. This is quartz and features a regular Tang buckle, while this is manual and older and features a deployant. So doesn't matter what movement or era of Must De Cartier tank you have, it could have any option of strap or buckle, just depending on when and where it was sold. At the same time, the reference numbers are important to note. We'll end it off with taking a look at an older example like this. This one does not have a reference number, only a serial number. That is normal for the manually wound Cartier Must De tanks. But then when they switched to quartz, they added the reference number 590005, which signifies the 23 by 30mm case size and a quartz movement. Later on in the late 90s and early 2000s, they would switch to the reference 1615cc like this one. So those are the important reference numbers that you need to understand. The reference number signifies the case size of the watch. If you want a 23 by 30 millimeter quartz watch, you need to make sure it is the 1615 cc or the 590005. I could be missing a reference number within this model, but that is what you really need to understand. These early manual examples, even this tuxedo dial, never had a reference number, only a serial number. And within the serial numbers, you can't decipher what year it's from because there is no database for these watches. A lot of people want to reach out and ask for the year of production, and you can really only get a year from when it was purchased if it comes with its original box and papers, like this example. These are the important things to keep in mind when purchasing one. Again, the gold plating case is not as worryful as some make it out to be. If you have a good condition one, like the 5 that we have here, or any of the ones that we sell over at huntingtoncompany.com, you should not have to worry about the case being worn or wearing off in the future if you take care of it. If you see any spidering or cracking on your lacquer finish, don't worry. It's not noticeable to the naked eye, and it's very normal for vintage Cartier, even a solid gold Cartier Tank Louis like this. If you're looking at box and papers, you might get a warranty card or a booklet with a certificate. You might get a larger box or a smaller box. That's completely normal, and that's the same for the strap and the buckle. If it's a Tang buckle that has no hallmarks but looks correct, you have nothing to worry about. If you're looking to purchase a Must De Cartier Tank, just focus on condition. If you find a clean example, then you are more than safe to enjoy the watch for a very long amount of time. These watches have been worn and enjoyed for over 30 years now and are still worn and enjoyed by many without a problem. So if you're looking to purchase a Cartier Tank or Must De Cartier Tank like these, please feel free to reach out. If we missed anything that you want more information on, again, make sure you comment below or reach out to us. I'll gladly answer any questions that you guys have. I know there's so much more to talk about, like limited edition examples and even how to maintain and care for these watches, but we can't do all that in one video. So please reach out to us if you have any questions, and if you're looking to purchase one and are looking for a specific model or dial variation, I will gladly help you find what you're looking for. As always, if you end up purchasing one of these beautiful vintage Must De Cartier tanks from the watch shop over at huntingtoncompany.com or any other watch that we have available, I promise you, it will not disappoint.